today I want to talk to you about animal communication and how I began. I'm going to do a video series, and this is video 1. Okay, my name is Burgess. I'm a psychic medium, animal and nature communicator, and during this video series, I will also talk to you about communicating with plants and flowers. Now you may my dog might come charging in here in a minute, or you may see him. You might hear him bark because he doesn't like mechanical noises. So if one of the neighbours is doing a mechanical noise, he's likely to start barking. So I want to tell you first how spirit communicate with us, because I've spoken to people who wanted to learn animal communication, and I've taught people animal communication as well, but they don't believe what they hear or sense or feel. So to begin, I want to tell you how spirit communicate with us, and how they communicate with us is as normal as you communicating with a friend or family member. It's exactly the same, and this is why people don't believe it's happening. Let me give you an example. It's not really about animal communication, but a lady came to me for a reading, and she came with her friend, and they both sat together. And I said to this lady, "You're psychic?" And she said, "Yes, I know I am. Well, I don't know, maybe." So she was like that, and her friend was going, you are very psychic." So I said, you know, what's been happening in your life then to make you think you're not psychic, or to make you think you are psychic? And she said that her and her friend were walking down this lane one evening, and they were eating a packet of crisps each, and suddenly the packet of crisps this lady had shot out of her hand, went up in the air, sort of blew away. Just seen a bird or pigeon land. This packet of crisps sort of went up in the air or blew away, and all the crisps flew out, and then it blew along the alleyway. Excuse me, it might be pollen allergy. And she, at the same time, she thought of her friend who had passed over to the spirit world, and thought she heard her friend say hello, and thought she heard her friend's name. And then she said to me, "But I'm not, I didn't, did I? I'm not psychic, that didn't happen." But she also said that that is exactly what her friend would have done when she was alive on the earth plane. She would have gone boom like that, knocked the packet of crisps out of this lady's hand. So I said, "Well, there you are, you are psychic, you've received a psychic message, that was your friend." And I explained all about it, and she said, no, it wasn't real, was it? It didn't happen. Well, it did happen, but it wasn't her friend in spirit who did it. So often people don't believe these things. They don't believe they're psychic. They don't believe these things are happening, and that's because it's so normal. We're born psychic. We are psychic. We've just forgotten how to do it, what it's all about, the minute we're born, or getting up to about the age of, say, 5 or 7. It's called the veil. Some people call it the veil. So a veil comes over you, and you forget all about being psychic. You forget about the spirit world, what it was like, and things like that. Now, getting back to animal communication, I also was with a lady, and she said she'd love to talk to animals. And I said, "Well, look, we were out in the countryside, and there happened to be a fox go across a field." I said, "Okay, tune into that fox. What's that fox saying?" And I said, "Stare at it, and just the first thing that comes into your head." And she said, "Well, it's saying it's not hungry anymore because it's just killed a rabbit and ate it, but it also wants a rabbit to take back to its young." And then she said, no, I made that up, didn't I? I said, no, you didn't make it up. It was what was in your head. It feels as though we're making it up because it is so normal. It feels as though you're talking to yourself, you sense it, you know, you hear it. It's as if you're talking to yourself. It is as if you're imagining it, but that is because it is so normal, and it is like imagining things. Now, another thing that spirit do, as we grow up and we get hobbies or interests or jobs, spirit work with us in a way that we will recognize. So let's say you're a carpenter, or so a carpenter will work with wood, numbers, measure things. Let's say you do house removal, so you're always dealing with boxes, so it's all to do with boxes and measurement, and spirit will give you messages to do with these things. They will use your knowledge to give you messages. So they might show you, say, a box. I might get a client and I see a box, and it might mean that client feels as though they're in a box, feels as though they can't get out. Okay, so let's say you're an artist, or you do needlework, or you teach children and you teach art to children, so you're always dealing with colours. So spirit might work with you with colours, and they might show you various colours. Now, each person and each client, with each client it can happen, but with each person, each medium, each psychic person, they will see colours in a different way. They will interpret colours in a different way. So for me, I see red as strength and energy. I see yellow is also energy, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But yellow and green for me are knowledge. So if I was to do a reading for somebody and I saw, I could see a green circle, a green blob, or a green in their aura, that would tell me that they either want to gain knowledge or they have lots of knowledge. So again, it's what you work with. Say you're a nurse, you've always been interested in nursing, caring for people, then spirit may talk to you in terms of healing. Okay, so let me just tell you about the colour yellow, which I said sometimes it can mean knowledge and wisdom and understanding. Sometimes it can mean emotions, if someone's very emotional, but it can also mean energy. And when I first moved to Nottinghamshire, we lived in a flat, and the house next door, not next door, 2 doors up, this chap, it was rented, this property up the road was rented out, and this chap turned up in a yellow sports car with an open top, and I thought, oh right, he was revving up, you know, letting everyone know he'd arrived, and the car was quite noisy. And then slowly over the weeks he started painting the house, and he painted the windows yellow and the front door yellow, and then he painted the walls yellow and the front wall and the front gate yellow, and then he put yellow blinds up. And I said to my daughters, watch out, yellow means energy. What's going to happen once this chap finished painting everything yellow? Well, he started having all-night parties, didn't he? He put fairy lights up in the garden, flashing lights, loudspeakers, and quite often he had these all-night parties blasting away. So there, that goes to show you that yellow goes with energy. So this little video, this first one in the series Animal Communication, and I will add Nature Communication, is about how spirit speak to us. So you need to know, if you want to learn how to speak with animals, how to communicate with animals, you've got to know how you will receive the messages. So how it works is, it's just so normal. It's such a job to explain, because it is so normal. But what I will say is, if you ask, you know, if you want to talk to a tree, why not? If you want to talk to a dog, cat, budgerigar, whatever, tortoise even, fish, anything, it's the first thing that comes into your head. So what I do is I look at a tree or a plant, or I look at an animal, and I say, hello, how are you? And the first thing that comes into my head is the answer. And it might be, I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm sad. I've spoken to trees, and they say they're dehydrated or they're planted in the wrong place, things like that. Dogs might say they want a longer walk, make you feel all guilty. Now, something just came into my mind and went back out again, which is, I was going to mention that. I've spoken to fish in ponds, a fish, I went in a news agent. I went in a florist shop. It also sold ornaments and things as well, and there was a tiny little dish with water in, and these fish, it had far too many fish in it, and they were far too big. And this poor fish, he looked up at me and he was going like that, and I said, how are you? And he said, I am just so bored. I mean, he couldn't even turn round in this water. Whether the lady put him in another tank overnight, I do not know. And I went home and I said to my husband, I said, I am going to get that fish out of there. I said, the poor thing is just so bored, fed up, it can hardly breathe, it can't even turn round, it can't swim. I am going to get that fish out of that pond, give it a proper home. Anyway, I think possibly a couple of days went by. I think maybe on the Sunday the shop was shut, but I don't think I went back immediately. I was going to go back and offer to buy the fish. But anyway, I went back on Monday, and there was a for sale sign, or even a sold sign, and the shop was empty, absolutely empty of everything. So I'm hoping that my prayers were answered and that fish was given another home. And I spoke to some fish at a children's play centre, and the fish were they had a long gully where they could swim round and people could touch them, and the fish said they loved being tickled by children, so that was lovely. Yeah, so it skipped my mind what else I was going, no, Spirit had put it back into my mind. Now I want to tell you how I began giving readings and how I began giving messages, because Spirit will change it. They do change it with you. As I said, if you're they work with what you know, and they work with what you've grown up with. So you grow up, you have hobbies, you learn to ride a bike, you go to school, and then you end up going out to work. So they will use your talents, and they will use what you know. So if you know lots about colours, if you've learned about colours, if you love colours, if you learn about numbers and shapes, or say you write books and you know a lot of long words, they will use that to help you when they communicate with you. But when I first started, I used tarot cards. I didn't go on to angel cards. I used various tarot cards and animal cards with pictures of animals on. And when I first started, I used to put my hand over the card, and I actually felt an energy come from the card into the palm of my hand, which you've got a chakra. There is a chakra on the palm of your hand, and I would feel this energy go into my hand, through this chakra, up my arm and into my head, and out of my head came the message that went for the reading, that went from the card. And that was so very, very strange. That's how I first started it. I just laid the cards out, put my hand over a card, over the next card, and it was like the energy of the card went up my hand and into my brain and gave a message. And then from that it changed to I would stare at the card, and I even worked with a crystal ball for a while, and I would stare at the crystal ball and the message then would just pop into my head that way. Nowadays I get messages in all kinds of ways. I feel, smell, taste, hear. I hear inside my mind, and I hear out loud occasionally, and I see inside my mind, and I see occasionally. I often see a dog. I think my dog's next to me, and I turn around and it's not. It's a spirit dog. So there we have it. I hope you've learnt a little bit here. This is video 1 in the series Animal Communication and Nature Communication. And I'm Barbara Burgess, Psychic Medium. I look forward to doing the next video in this series with you. And the next video will be, I will tell you how I began doing animal communication. Bye for now.